Welcome to Voices in the Wilderness. My name is Pastor Lorraine Bouffard. I am the Bishop of the Diocese of the American Ecumenical Catholic Church. My show this evening is one of tremendous interest, and I hope that you will stick with us and listen to my guest, Sister Eileen Hogan. Hello, Eileen. She is a religious sister of mercy. We go back a long time, I think 50 years.
Correct.
That's when we first met. Eileen has just celebrated her jubilee, 50 years in religious life. We met, I think it was in August of 1958, when we both joined up with the Sisters of Mercy. Eileen stuck it out and I didn't. Interesting is that after a couple of years, and I left and went and finished my degree at St. Joseph's College, and right after graduation from college, was accepted into the Peace Corps. One of the first three originals to go out. We were escorted out on the tarmac by Sergeant Shriver. So here I was on my way to Liberia, a country I'd never heard of, because who ever heard of any of these countries back in the 50s? But what's interesting is that now Eileen and I share another link, the link of the plight of Africa. And she is working and has begun a very, very special mission. Would you tell us a little bit, and our show is called All Africa Conference, Sister to Sister. Would you tell us what that is all about, Eileen?
Well, the All Africa Conference, Sister to Sister, was begun as a response to the needs expressed by African women religious regarding the HIV/AIDS pandemic. So it wasn't something that Sister Margaret Farley, who is another co-director, or myself thought up that the sisters in Africa needed. It was a direct request. Now, I can go back and tell you how that request came to us.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
In March 2002, 25 African women theologians met at Yale University in New Haven with 25 women theologians from North and South America regarding HIV/AIDS pandemic.
Can I just stop you for a sec?
Sure.
We know what an epidemic is. Maybe people don't know what a pandemic is.
A pandemic is it's a widespread epidemic.
So it would, let's say, not just be in this little area.
Correct. It's widespread.
Widespread.
And it's widespread throughout the world.
Yes.
So it's a pandemic. So they met at Yale to discuss the impact that the pandemic had on these women as theologians. While they were there, Sister Margaret Farley called apart the African women theologians. There's about 5 of them, and asked them what the next step was for African women theologians, African women sisters, regarding the pandemic, What do they need?
Right. And let's not just talk about it, but what are you going to do about it?
Right. And the theologian said the same thing that we need. They need time to come apart. They need time to meet. They can address the pandemic. They can empower each other. But somebody needs to gather them together. And so Margaret thought that idea was so wonderful. Maybe we could do something about it. And at that time, I was on the leadership team of the Sisters of Mercy at that time, and I had just come off the team. And so she contacted me, and we contacted the local leadership of the Sisters of Mercy, and they thought that was a good idea. Then we went to the national team, because there's no way you can get involved with something like that without the backing of as many of the leadership teams of the Sisters of Mercy as possible. They thought about it and came back and said it was one of the most creative ideas that they heard about. And they backed it up with a $5,000 check.
That's
so there we
good. I mean,
so there we were.
This is so different. I mean, we can tell we're in a new age.
Mm-hmm.
Here, when you and I started out, the Sisters of Mercy were a statewide organization.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, their mission was teaching.
Right, and remember the days we couldn't travel more than 5 miles?
Right.
Without special permission.
Right. And now the Sisters of Mercy have joined together
Mm-hmm.
in with other states,
Mm-hmm.
and you're now a union.
Well, we don't use the word union because there was a union before that we were never a part of, so now we're called an institute.
An institute.
Yeah.
Well,
remember we used to pray for the sisters in the union, or they prayed for us?
So now you are in collaboration with, an institute, many of the religious Sisters of Mercy, and you have their backing. And how many sisters over in Africa got together or wanted to do something also with you?
Well, after we received the check and we knew that the sisters, that the leadership teams were really in support of this, I began to contact people that were knowledgeable in the field, people who had experience in the field. And you had to start from scratch. Mm-hmm. Just like anything else, you start from scratch. And you had to learn. I was told that if we wanted to start something like that we should start in the Southeast. Mm-hmm. Then I learned that there was a meeting of the superiors in the Southeast, actually in Kenya.
Okay.
Kenya. So there was a meeting the following August. So we go now mm-hmm. from March, well, April is when I agreed to do this, and to August. And there was a meeting of the superiors, and they only met every third year. So I knew I had to get over there. Mm-hmm. So I got myself over there, and there are Sisters of Mercy. We have a province in Kenya.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
so it comes from Ireland. It's a mm-hmm. province from Ireland, and so I went to the conference, and I had to meet with the chair of the Sisters Conference, the Superiors Conference first, and tell her why I was there, and she had agreed that I could come. And then when I went, I met with her and tried to explain what this idea was about, even not knowing myself how it was going to grow and develop. Mm-hmm. But I had to assure her that it wasn't something that we thought up. It was something that the women theologians wanted, and that we were offering them a gift, and they could accept the gift or they could refuse the gift. But I had to promise that things that I learned in Africa about African women sisters, that I wouldn't write about them. So I don't do that. I don't share a lot of what I've learned, but I share the basics or the major things.
Well, I'm just thinking, you said you got $5,000. That probably just paid your airfare, didn't it?
It did. It did. And I worked out of the front room of where I live, and I had an old computer from Fordham.
Yeah.
So
yes.
A lot of people in collaboration with this, but I believe that we want things to work. It's really not money. It's the will, and it's the people that you get around you, people of goodwill that urge you on and help you out, and it works.
Well, what would you say was the most surprising thing to you when you met for the first time with these religious sisters and also other women?
You mean
that were handling, they were trying to survive with AIDS, HIV.
Well, I think one of the biggest surprises was the fact that when we compare religious life here in the United States, you compare it with, Africa, it must be the same. Mm-hmm. Where